The Galactic Council chambers fell silent as Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire rose from his crystalline seat. His 6 arms spread wide in a gesture of supreme authority, while his metallic carapace gleamed under the artificial suns that lit the massive dome. Around him, representatives of 47 different species watched with barely concealed fear and anticipation. "The time for negotiations has ended," Kethvar announced, his voice carrying the harmonic frequencies that made lesser species tremble. "The human colony on Kepler 442b will be evacuated within 72 standard hours, or we will deploy the Void Render." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. The Void Render was legend among the younger species, but those who had witnessed the Zephyrian Wars knew its terrible reality. It was a weapon that could strip the very atoms from a planet's surface, leaving nothing but empty space where worlds once thrived. The human representative, a seemingly unremarkable man named David Chen, remained seated in his simple chair. Unlike the elaborate hovering platforms and crystalline thrones of the other ambassadors, Chen sat in what appeared to be a basic metal folding chair he had brought from Earth. His plain gray suit looked almost comical next to the flowing robes, energy fields, and biomechanical interfaces of his peers. Ambassador Chen, the council speaker, a towering Altarian with skin like flowing water, addressed the human. "Your species has been given a generous offer. The Zephyrian Empire requires the mineral deposits beneath your colony for their expansion. Surely you understand that one small human settlement cannot stand against the might of an empire that spans 300 star systems." Chen stood slowly, adjusting his simple black-rimmed glasses. He was average height for a human, with graying hair and the kind of face that would blend into any crowd on Earth. Nothing about him suggested he represented a species capable of challenging the Zephyrian Empire. "I appreciate the Council's concern," Chen said in clear, unaccented standard galactic, "but I'm afraid we'll have to decline the Empire's generous offer." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Even the Altarian speaker's flowing features showed surprise. The Zephyrians had conquered entire sectors of the galaxy. Their technology was so advanced that most species simply surrendered upon seeing their ships in orbit. Kethvar's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was aggressive amusement. "Perhaps you do not understand, little human. We have deployed our battle fleet to your system. 300 dreadnoughts, each capable of cracking a moon. Our smallest fighter craft carries more firepower than your entire planetary defense grid." "I'm sure they're very impressive," Chen replied mildly, as if discussing the weather, "but the answer is still no." The Zephyrian ambassador's carapace began to shift color, cycling through deep purples and reds that indicated rising anger. "Your species has existed in this galaxy for barely 3 of your centuries. You control 14 star systems and perhaps 50 billion individuals. We control 300 systems and over 2 trillion citizens. What could you possibly possess that would make you think you can refuse us?" Other ambassadors leaned forward in their seats. This was the question many had wondered about since humans first appeared on the galactic stage. They were a young species, technologically unremarkable in most ways, yet they had established colonies in some of the most dangerous regions of space. They had survived encounters with the Void Stalkers of the Outer Rim, and had somehow convinced the notoriously xenophobic Crystalline Collective to open trade relations. Chen reached into his jacket pocket, and every security sensor in the chamber immediately focused on him. The Zephyrian guards, massive warriors in powered armor, shifted slightly, their weapons coming to ready positions. The movement was subtle, but Chen noticed it and smiled slightly. "I think," Chen said, his hand still in his pocket, "that you might be operating under some misconceptions about my species." The tension in the chamber was palpable. Even the usually unflappable Altarian speaker seemed concerned. The Zephyrians were known for their quick tempers and quicker violence. More than one diplomatic meeting had ended in bloodshed when their patience was tested. Kethvar's 6 arms spread wider, and his voice took on the deep harmonics that preceded Zephyrian battle cries. "Withdraw your hand slowly, human, or my guards will assume you are reaching for a weapon." "Oh, it's not a weapon," Chen said cheerfully. "Though I suppose that depends on your point of view." He pulled his hand from his pocket, revealing something that made absolutely no sense to anyone in the chamber. It was small, roughly cube-shaped, and appeared to be some kind of organic matter wrapped in a metallic substance. It was brown and unremarkable, And it certainly didn't look like any kind of advanced technology. What is that? The speaker asked, confusion evident in their flowing voice. This, Chen said, holding up the object, is a chocolate chip cookie. My daughter made it. She's 8 years old and quite proud of her baking skills. The silence that followed was deafening. Then slowly Kethvar began to laugh. It was a harsh grating sound that came from deep within his carapace. You mock us with food? You think to distract us with some primitive confection? Not distract, Chen said. Demonstrate. He took a small bite of the cookie, chewed thoughtfully, and nodded approvingly. Emily's getting much better at these. Last batch was a bit too salty. Kethvar's laughter cut off abruptly. His 6 arms began to gesture in complex patterns, and his carapace shifted to deep red. You dare insult the Zephyrian Empire with this display of casual disrespect? Guards, arrest this. Before you finish that sentence, Chen interrupted, still holding the half-eaten cookie. I should probably mention that my daughter didn't just make one batch. She made dozens. And right now every human ship, station, and colony in this sector has fresh cookies in their mess halls. The Zephyrian ambassador paused, confusion replacing anger. What possible relevance could that have? Chen smiled, and for the first time some of the other ambassadors noticed that it wasn't entirely friendly. It means that in approximately 6 hours, when your fleet reaches our colony, every single human on that planet will be well-fed, happy, and spending time with their families. Do you know what humans are like when they're protecting their families, Ambassador Kethvar? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Around the chamber, representatives of species that had encountered humans in various capacities began to shift uncomfortably. The Saurian delegate, whose people had once attempted to raid a human trading post, made a low hissing sound that indicated nervousness. They're not like other species, Chen continued conversationally. We don't get more dangerous when we're angry or desperate. We get more dangerous when we're calm, well-fed, and defending the people we love. The Zephyrian battle fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Like a storm of metal and energy, 300 massive dreadnoughts arranged themselves in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the distinctive blue-green alloy that marked Zephyrian military vessels. Each ship was a kilometer long and bristled with weapons capable of reducing continents to ash. Fleet Admiral Zexthor stood on the bridge of the flagship Inevitable Victory, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical displays with satisfaction. The human colony registered as a small cluster of energy signatures on the planet's surface, maybe 50,000 inhabitants at most. Their orbital defenses consisted of outdated missile platforms and energy shields that wouldn't stop a single salvo from his smallest frigate. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the planet. Put it through, Zexthor commanded, expecting the usual surrender communication that came when primitive species saw the might of the Empire. Instead, a young human female appeared on the main screen. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old, with bright blue eyes and blonde hair tied back in simple braids. She was sitting at what appeared to be a kitchen table, and there was flour on her apron. Hello, the child said cheerfully, waving at the camera. I'm Emily Chen, and I wanted to thank you for giving us time to finish our baking. Daddy said you might be hungry after traveling all that way, so we made extra cookies for everyone. Admiral Zexthor's mandibles clicked in confusion. Behind the child, he could see what was obviously a domestic kitchen, completely inconsistent with a military command center or government facility. Child, who is your commanding officer? We demand to speak with someone in authority. Emily's face scrunched up in concentration. Well, Daddy's the ambassador, but he's still at the big meeting with all the aliens. Mommy's in charge of the colony defense grid, but she's helping Mrs. Patterson with her apple pie recipe. Oh, and Colonel Martinez is here too. She's our military commander. The image shifted as Emily turned the camera around. Standing in the kitchen wearing a flour-dusted apron over her military uniform was indeed a human colonel. Maria Martinez was a veteran of the Proxima border wars, and her service record included 3 separate incidents of successfully defending human installations against impossible odds. Colonel Martinez, Admiral Zexthor addressed her formally. I am Fleet Admiral Zexthor of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender your colony immediately, or face the consequences of our displeasure. Martinez looked up from the mixing bowl she was working with and smiled. Admiral Zexthor, it's nice to meet you. I've heard about your fleet's reputation. Very impressive. Are you familiar with human military doctrine? Your primitive tactics are irrelevant against our superior firepower, the Admiral replied coldly. Oh, I'm not talking about tactics, Martinez said, continuing to stir whatever she was mixing. I'm talking about something much more fundamental. You see, humans have this concept called total war. Most galactic species fight for territory, resources, or political advantage. They have war goals and acceptable losses and exit strategies. She paused to taste whatever she was mixing, nodded approvingly, and continued. Humans don't really do that. When we fight to win completely, not just to achieve our objectives, but to make sure the threat never comes back. It's a survival trait we developed when we were still living in caves and fighting off predators that wanted to eat our children. Admiral Zexthor felt the first stirring of unease. The human's casual demeanor while discussing military philosophy was unsettling. Your species numbers barely 50 billion across 14 systems. We control 300 systems and possess weapons that can destroy planets. Your threats are meaningless. Martinez looked directly at the camera and her expression shifted subtly. The friendly smile remained, but something cold appeared in her eyes. Admiral, how many Zephyrian citizens do you think there are in total? Over 2 trillion, he replied proudly. And how many of them are actually soldiers? The question caught him off guard. Perhaps 1 in 50, maybe 1 in 60. So about 35 billion soldiers spread across 300 systems, with the vast majority focused on maintaining control rather than actual combat operations. Martinez set down her mixing bowl and wiped her hands on her apron. Do you know what percentage of the human population has military training? Zexthor was beginning to understand why this conversation made him uncomfortable. Among the Zephyrians, military service was restricted to a special caste. Among most galactic species, warfare was conducted by professional soldiers while civilians lived their normal lives. Every human over the age of 16 has completed basic military training, Martinez continued. It's part of our education system. We learned a long time ago that in a galaxy full of species bigger and stronger than us, survival meant everyone needed to know how to fight. Not just our soldiers. Everyone. Emily had turned the camera back to face her and she was holding up a cookie shaped like a star. This one's for you, Admiral Zexthor. Daddy says sharing food is how humans make friends and friends don't fight each other. The innocence of the child's offer, contrasted with the military commander's casual discussion of total war, created a cognitive dissonance that Admiral Zexthor found deeply disturbing. In his experience, species were either warriors or civilians, never both. Furthermore, Martinez's voice continued from off-camera. You might want to check your fleet's sensors. We've been having some interesting visitors. Zexthor turned to his tactical officer. Report. Sir, we're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures incoming. Unknown configuration. Numbers? The officer's voice became uncertain. Sir, the computer says there are approximately 8,000 contacts, but that can't be correct. Put it on screen. The main display shifted to show the tactical overview of the system. Admiral Zexthor's 300 dreadnoughts were clearly visible as blue-green dots in perfect formation. But surrounding them, emerging from hyperspace in a seemingly endless stream, were red contacts. Thousands of them. What are those ships? He demanded. His xenobiology officer consulted her databases. Sir, they appear to be human vessels, but the configurations don't match any known military specifications. They're diverse. Many appear to be converted civilian craft. On the communication screen, Emily was now offering cookies to various other humans who had entered the kitchen. Men and women of all ages, some still wearing work clothes, others in what appeared to be hastily donned military gear. All of them were armed and all of them were smiling. Admiral. Martinez reappeared on screen, now wearing a tactical vest over her apron. I should explain something about human colonies. We don't just build settlements. We build communities. And when you threaten a human community, you're not just threatening the people who live there. You're threatening their families, their friends, their neighbors, their drinking buddies, their former military units, their college roommates, their pen pals, and basically everyone they've ever shared a meal with. The tactical display updated. 8,000 contacts had become 12,000. Then 15,000. The thing about humans, Martinez continued, checking the power cell on what appeared to be a very advanced plasma rifle, is that we keep in touch. Emily's cookies aren't just good, they're famous. She's been sending recipes to human colonies across the galaxy. Those colonies shared them with other colonies. Those people told their friends. Their friends told their friends. 20,000 contacts. 25,000. Admiral Zexthor's tactical officer was now openly staring at his instruments. "Sir, I'm reading over 30,000 vessels now, and more are arriving every minute." Configuration analysis suggests everything from converted cargo haulers to modified pleasure craft. Some appear to be actual military vessels, but most are improvised. Emily held up another cookie, this one shaped like a small starship. Mrs. Kim from the mining station on Tau Ceti made the chocolate chips for this batch. She said to tell everyone thank you for the birthday card we sent when her grandson was born. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Kethvar received the tactical update from his fleet with increasing disbelief. His carapace had shifted through several color changes, finally settling on a sickly yellow that indicated profound confusion among his species. "This is impossible," he muttered, his 6 arms gesturing frantically at the holographic display that showed the Kepler 442 system. "Where are all these ships coming from?" Our intelligence indicated minimal human military presence in that sector. David Chen finished his cookie and brushed the crumbs from his hands. "You know, Ambassador, I think there might be a fundamental misunderstanding about how human society works. You keep talking about military presence as if it's something separate from our regular communities." The other council members leaned forward, equally fascinated and concerned by the developing situation. The Altarian speaker's flowing features rippled with what passed for anxiety among their species. "Ambassador Chen, our sensors are detecting over 40,000 vessels now. Surely your species cannot have mobilized such a fleet without our intelligence networks detecting the movement." Chen chuckled and reached into his other pocket, producing what appeared to be a simple communicator device. "Council Speaker May, I demonstrate something? This is a standard human communication device. Nothing special about it, really. Every human has one." He activated the device, and immediately a cheerful chime sounded. "Hey everyone," he said into the device. "This is David Chen. Emily made cookies again, and some new friends want to try them. Anyone in the neighborhood want to come over for dinner?" Within seconds, the device was chiming with responses. Dozens of them, then hundreds. The audio filled the chamber with a cacophony of voices, all speaking in various human languages and dialects, but all expressing the same basic sentiment. "On our way. You see?" Chen explained as he turned off the device. "Humans don't really have a military in the way most species understand it. We have communities. And communities look out for each other." Ambassador Kethvar's confusion was now mixed with growing alarm. But the logistics alone, fuel, supplies, coordination, how can civilian vessels possibly mount an effective response? "Well," Chen said thoughtfully, "that's where you might have misunderstood something else about humans. We're not really a species that waits for permission or official authorization when our families are threatened. Take my nephew Marcus, for example. He runs a shipping company that moves cargo between the outer colonies. When he got my message about Emily's cookies, he probably didn't think I should contact military headquarters for permission to deviate from my shipping route. He probably thought Uncle David's family is in trouble, and I have a cargo ship full of mining equipment that could be useful." The Zephyrian ambassador accessed his tactical feed again. The numbers were still climbing. 50,000 vessels. 60,000. And the analysis was becoming more disturbing by the minute. According to our xenobiology experts, Kethvar read from his datapad, many of these vessels show signs of rapid modification. Civilian cargo haulers with military-grade weapons bolted to their hulls, passenger liners with armor plating welded over their windows, even what appears to be a converted bakery ship with torpedo tubes. Chen nodded approvingly. That would be the sweet dreams. Mrs. Patterson runs the best bakery in the Centauri system. I bet she brought her famous apple turnovers. She always does for special occasions. "This is madness," Kethvar sputtered. "These are civilian vessels with civilian crews. They have no military training, no proper equipment, no command structure." "Actually," Chen said, pulling out another device, "they do have a command structure. It's just not the kind you're used to. May I show you something?" Without waiting for permission, he activated what appeared to be a simple holographic projector. The image that appeared above the device was startling in its simplicity. A family tree. But instead of showing blood relations, it showed connections between human communities across dozens of star systems. This is what we call the Who Knows Who network, Chen explained. Emily's cookies connected her to Mrs. Kim on the mining station. Mrs. Kim's grandson is married to a girl whose father runs a freight company. That freight company delivers supplies to a research station where Dr. Martinez, Colonel Martinez's sister, works on terraforming projects. Dr. Martinez plays chess with a retired admiral who lives on a farming colony 3 systems over. The holographic web grew more complex as Chen continued. That retired admiral served with Captain Williams, who now runs passenger service between the core worlds. Captain Williams's daughter is dating a young man whose mother manages a manufacturing facility that produces ship components. That facility supplies parts to. Stop, Kethvar said weakly. I understand. But Chen wasn't finished. The beautiful thing about this network is that it's completely organic. No central command, no official hierarchy, no formal military structure, just people who care about each other. And when you threaten one part of the network, you're effectively threatening the whole thing. The tactical display updated again. 75,000 vessels. The Zephyrian fleet, which had seemed overwhelmingly powerful just hours ago, was now outnumbered more than 200 to 1. Of course, Chen continued conversationally, there's also the professional response. Professional response? The Altarian speaker asked nervously. Oh yes, the volunteers are just the neighbors and family friends. We also have actual military units who specialize in this sort of thing. They're just taking a bit longer to arrive because they're coming from further away, and they're bringing the serious equipment. Kethvar's communicator chimed urgently. He glanced at it, and his carapace immediately shifted to deep purple, indicating extreme distress. Admiral Zexthor reports additional contacts arriving at the edge of the system. Military configuration. Unknown numbers due to stealth technology. Chen nodded. That would be the Third Fleet. They were conducting exercises in the Outer Rim, but Admiral Sato grew up in the same town as Colonel Martinez. Small galaxy, really. How many ships in your Third Fleet? The speaker asked. Oh, about 1,200. But they're the fun kind of ships. The kind specifically designed to deal with larger fleets that threaten human colonies. Chen's expression remained mild, but his eyes had taken on the same cold quality that Colonel Martinez had displayed. Admiral Sato is particularly creative when it comes to tactics. She wrote the textbook on asymmetrical warfare that most of our officers study. The chamber fell silent, except for the sound of Kethvar's communicator continuing to chime with increasingly frantic updates from his fleet. The other council members watched the tactical display with fascination and growing unease. Ambassador Chen, the speaker finally said, what exactly are you trying to tell us? Chen finished brushing cookie crumbs from his jacket and stood up straighter. When he spoke, his voice carried a subtle authority that hadn't been there before. I'm trying to explain that when you threatened Emily's home, you didn't just declare war on a human colony. You declared war on every human who has ever shared a meal with someone from that colony. And in a species that considers sharing food to be the foundation of friendship, that's a surprisingly large number of people. He paused to let that sink in, then continued. But more importantly, you declared war on a species that has spent the last 3 centuries learning how to survive in a galaxy full of predators. We've gotten very good at it. Kethvar looked up from his communicator, his carapace now cycling rapidly through colors that indicated panic. Admiral Zexthor is requesting immediate reinforcement. The human vessels are. They're not behaving according to any recognized tactical doctrine. Some are broadcasting cooking recipes, others are sharing family photos, but their weapons configurations are unprecedented. Chen smiled, and this time it was entirely friendly. Well, of course they're sharing recipes. It's dinner time and we have guests coming. It would be rude not to offer them something to eat. Admiral Zexthor had commanded fleets for over 40 years. He had conquered 17 star systems, defeated the hegemony of Carthul, and once held off an entire Voidstalker swarm with just 30 ships. But he had never encountered anything like the tactical nightmare that was rapidly developing around his fleet. Sir, his communications officer reported, sounding increasingly bewildered, We're receiving over 10,000 individual transmissions from the human vessels. Most appear to be personal messages. Personal messages? Zexthor demanded. Yes, sir. Recipe exchanges, family updates, birthday wishes, homework help, and... Sir, one vessel is apparently live streaming a cooking demonstration while simultaneously targeting our port flank with what our computers identify as improvised antimatter torpedoes. On the main screen, the tactical situation had become completely surreal. The human fleet, if it could even be called a fleet, had arranged itself in what appeared to be a completely random pattern. Cargo haulers floated next to converted pleasure craft, which were positioned alongside actual military vessels. There was no formation, no clear command structure, and no apparent coordination. And yet somehow they had achieved perfect tactical positioning. Analysis of their deployment? Zexthor asked his tactical officer. The younger Zephyrian's carapace was flickering through rapid color changes that indicated severe cognitive strain. Sir, it doesn't make sense. According to standard tactical doctrine, their positioning is chaotic. But our computers keep flagging potential threat vectors that somehow they've covered all of them simultaneously. It's as if each ship independently chose the exact position needed to create an optimal defensive formation without any central coordination. That's impossible. Yes, sir. But, sir, we're also detecting some unusual energy signatures. Many of these civilian vessels appear to have been modified with creative interpretations of weapons technology. Zexthor pulled up the detailed scans on his personal display. What he saw defied belief. A passenger liner had been fitted with mining lasers reconfigured for combat use. A cargo hauler was broadcasting the energy signature of what appeared to be a stellar-grade industrial fabricator that had been turned into some kind of mass driver. A small personal yacht was somehow generating the power output of a battleship. How is this possible? He muttered. His science officer, a specialist in xenobiology, cleared her throat nervously. Sir, I've been reviewing human cultural databases. It appears that humans have a concept they call jury-rigging, or making do. When they lack proper equipment, they improvise solutions using whatever materials are available. Their engineering culture appears to encourage creativity over standardization. Surely that makes their weapons less effective? Not necessarily, sir. Our computers are having difficulty predicting the capabilities of their modified systems because they fall outside normal parameters. A mining laser should not be able to penetrate military-grade armor, but they've apparently modified the focusing systems using bakery equipment. On the screen, the communication from the planet was still active. Emily was now giving what appeared to be a tutorial on cookie decoration, while Colonel Martinez worked in the background, assembling what looked like an extremely advanced tactical computer from what appeared to be kitchen appliances and children's toys. How's everyone doing up there? Martinez called cheerfully to the camera while connecting what looked like a gaming console to a military-grade targeting system. Admiral, I hope your crews are hungry. We've got enough food to feed everyone, and Mrs. Chen's famous pot roast should be ready in about an hour. Zexthor activated his communication system. Colonel Martinez, I demand an explanation. What are you hoping to accomplish with this circus? Martinez looked up from her improvised command station and smiled. Well, Admiral, we're hoping to accomplish exactly what we always accomplish when friends come over for dinner. We're going to feed everyone, make sure everyone has a good time, and send everyone home happy and safe. This is a military confrontation, not a social gathering. Why can't it be both? Martinez asked, genuinely puzzled. I mean, you came all this way. It would be rude not to offer hospitality. Emily popped back into view of the camera. Admiral Zexthor, I made a special cookie just for you. It's shaped like your flagship. Mrs. Patterson helped me with the details. She's really good at decorating. The little girl held up a cookie that was indeed shaped remarkably like the inevitable victory. It was decorated with what appeared to be edible paint that perfectly matched the blue-green coloring of Zephyrian military vessels. Zexthor stared at the screen in complete bewilderment. In his decades of military service, he had received surrender offers, bribes, threats, and desperate pleas. He had never been offered a cookie shaped like his own ship by an 8-year-old girl who was treating his invasion fleet like invited dinner guests. Sir, his tactical officer interrupted urgently, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human military vessel. Put it through. The screen split to show a new human face. This was clearly a professional military officer, Admiral Keiko Sato of the Human Third Fleet. Her uniform was crisp, her bearing was professional, and her expression was businesslike. Finally, someone who understood proper military protocol. "Admiral Zexthor," she said with formal courtesy. "I am Admiral Sato. I understand you've come to visit our colony." "That's wonderful. We love having guests." Zexthor felt a moment of relief. "Admiral Sato, finally someone who understands the gravity of this situation. I have 300 dreadnoughts under my command. Your civilian vessels pose no threat to the Zephyrian Empire." "Oh, the civilians aren't here to threaten anyone," Admiral Sato replied cheerfully. "They're here for the potluck dinner. Mrs. Patterson's apple turnovers are legendary, and Emily's cookies are famous throughout human space. This kind of gathering doesn't happen very often." "Potluck dinner?" Zexthor repeated weakly. "Of course, when this many humans get together, someone always suggests sharing food. It's how we do things. My ship brought fresh vegetables from the hydroponic farms on New Terra. Captain Morrison's cargo hauler has been converted into a mobile kitchen. His wife is an amazing chef. The Sweet Dreams bakery ship brought desserts for everyone." Zexthor looked at his tactical display again. 80,000 vessels, the largest civilian gathering in the history of the galaxy, and according to Admiral Sato, they were all here for a dinner party. "But what about your weapons?" he asked desperately. "Our sensors are detecting massive firepower among your civilian vessels." Admiral Sato's expression became slightly puzzled. "Well, of course they're armed. This is a dangerous galaxy, Admiral. Would you travel to a dinner party without making sure you could protect your family and friends?" She gestured off-screen, and the camera angle widened to show her bridge crew. They were all in military uniform, but they were also clearly preparing food. Someone was chopping vegetables at a workstation that had been converted into a prep kitchen. Another officer was stirring something in what appeared to be a large pot, mounted next to the navigation controls. "The thing is, Admiral," Sato continued, "humans don't really separate military and civilian activities the way most species do. When we gather for a meal, we bring weapons because we might need to defend our friends. When we go to war, we bring food because people need to eat. It's all part of the same basic human instinct. Take care of the people you care about." Emily reappeared on the other half of the screen, now wearing what appeared to be a child-sized military vest over her apron. "Admiral Zexthor, would you like to come down to the planet for dinner? Mommy says there's always room for one more, and Daddy says sharing food is how humans make friends." Zexthor looked at his tactical display one more time. 80,000 armed vessels, the most powerful human military fleet in the galaxy, and a little girl offering him cookies. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. "What?" he asked in a voice that had become slightly hysterical. "Do you actually want from us?" Colonel Martinez wiped her hands on her apron and looked directly into the camera with the patient expression of someone explaining something very obvious to a confused child. "Admiral Zexthor, we want exactly what we've been saying we want. We want to feed you dinner, share some good food, and send you home safely to your families. But you're refusing to surrender your colony." "Well, yes, because it's our home. We live here. Our children go to school here. Mrs. Patterson grows the best tomatoes in the sector in her garden, and the Hendersons just celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary in the community center we built with our own hands." Martinez gestured around the kitchen, which was clearly part of a well-established household. "You can't really expect us to just pack up and leave because someone else wants our home." Admiral Zexthor felt his sanity slipping away. "But we have superior firepower. We have the most advanced military technology in the galaxy." "I'm sure you do," Martinez agreed pleasantly. "Emily, can you show the Admiral your science fair project?" The little girl brightened up and scampered off-screen, returning moments later with what appeared to be a simple display board covered in childish drawings and handwritten text. "This is my project about energy conversion efficiency in antimatter containment systems," she announced proudly. "I got first place in the colony science fair." Admiral Zexthor stared at the display. The handwriting was clearly that of a child, complete with some letters written backwards and drawings of smiling suns in the margins. But the mathematical equations and technical diagrams were— "Sir," his science officer whispered urgently, "those calculations are correct, more than correct. They're showing optimization improvements to our own antimatter systems that our best engineers haven't discovered yet." Emily beamed at the camera. "Daddy helped me with the hard math, but I figured out the efficiency improvements myself. Mrs. Patterson's granddaughter is studying engineering at the university. and she helped me build the demonstration model. She held up what looked like a child's toy, a simple cube that was glowing softly with contained energy. Zexthor's instruments immediately registered it as a functioning antimatter reactor about the size of his fist, producing power output that should have required a facility the size of a city block. "Emily," Martinez said gently, "why don't you put that away before you make our guests nervous?" "Oh, okay." Emily carefully placed the miniature reactor on what appeared to be a kitchen counter, where it sat next to a fruit bowl and some children's drawings stuck to what was obviously a family refrigerator. "How?" Zexthor started, then stopped. "How is a child building antimatter reactors in her kitchen?" "Well, she's very bright," Martinez said proudly. "But also, human children tend to be curious about how things work. We encourage them to experiment and build things. Emily's been taking apart electronics since she was 4 years old. Last year, she built a communications array that could reach the next galaxy over. We had to ask her to turn it down because it was interfering with the interstellar shipping lanes." "That's impossible. Admiral," Admiral Sato interjected from her half of the screen, "I think you might be operating under some misconceptions about human technological capabilities. What level of technology do your intelligence reports suggest we possess?" Zexthor consulted his datapad. "Standard galactic civilian-grade equipment. Primitive by Empire standards. You've been rated as a Class 3 civilization." "Interesting. What rating system are you using?" "The hegemony scale. It measures technological sophistication based on standardized military and industrial capabilities." Admiral Sato nodded thoughtfully. "I see the problem. The hegemony scale measures what species buy from galactic markets and how closely their technology matches established patterns. It doesn't measure what they build themselves." "What do you mean?" "Well, for example, humans don't really buy antimatter reactors from galactic suppliers. We build our own. But since our designs don't match the standard patterns that most species use, they probably don't register properly on your technology assessments." Colonel Martinez held up what appeared to be a simple handheld device. "This is my daughter's tablet computer. She uses it for homework and games. It has approximately 1,000 times the processing power of your flagship's main computer, and she built it herself from spare parts we had lying around the house." "How is that possible?" "Because human children get bored easily, and we've learned that giving them challenging projects to work on is better than trying to stop them from taking things apart to see how they work," Martinez replied. "Emily's tablet is actually pretty basic compared to what some of the older kids in the colony have built." Admiral Sato pulled up a display on her end. "Admiral Zexthor, our intelligence suggests that Zephyrian military doctrine emphasizes standardization and centralized production. Your weapons and ships are built in massive factories and distributed throughout your fleet. Very efficient for large-scale operations. Of course, standardization ensures reliability and simplifies logistics." "Absolutely. It's a very practical approach. Humans do things differently. We tend to build things ourselves, modify them constantly, and share our improvements with each other. It's less efficient in some ways, but it has interesting side effects." The display Admiral Sato was showing began to illustrate human technological development. Instead of the neat hierarchical trees that characterized most galactic civilizations, human tech development looked like an explosion of interconnected innovations, with thousands of independent improvements happening simultaneously across dozens of star systems. "For instance," Sato continued, "the weapons modifications you're seeing on our civilian vessels weren't designed by a central military authority. They were created by individuals who wanted to protect their families and friends. Mrs. Patterson's bakery ship has antimatter torpedoes because her son-in-law is a mining engineer who figured out how to convert industrial excavation charges into ship-to-ship weapons. The Sweet Dreams can destroy a battleship because a grandmother wanted to make sure her cookies arrived safely. But surely mass-produced military equipment is more reliable than improvised civilian modifications?" Emily popped back into view. "Admiral Zexthor, would you like to see my other project? I've been working on improvements to gravitational field manipulation systems." "Emily, no," both Martinez and Sato said simultaneously. "Aw, but it's really cool. I figured out how to make artificial gravity wells that could—" "Emily," Martinez said firmly, "remember what we talked about regarding showing off to visitors?" The little girl's face fell slightly. "Oh, right. Not everyone is ready for some of our cooler inventions. They might get scared." Admiral Zexthor was beginning to understand that his invasion fleet might have encountered something far more dangerous than superior firepower. They had encountered a species that treated advanced weapons technology as children's science fair projects and antimatter reactors as kitchen appliances. "Admiral Sato," he said carefully, "what exactly are your capabilities?" Sato smiled, and it was the same kind of smile her colleague had given back at the council chambers. Friendly on the surface, but with something much more serious underneath. "Admiral, I'm not sure you're asking the right question. The question isn't what our capabilities are. The question is what we're willing to do to protect our families." She paused to let that sink in, then continued. "But since you asked, let me put it this way. Emily's science fair project represents approximately 15 minutes of casual experimentation by an 8-year-old child using materials we had sitting around the house. What do you think our actual military research programs might have accomplished?" In the council chambers, Ambassador Kethvar was receiving updates that defied everything he thought he knew about galactic warfare. His 6 arms gestured frantically as he processed the incoming reports from his fleet. "The humans are doing what?" he demanded of his communications officer. "Sir, they appear to be hosting a dinner party in space, with weapons hot and targeting solutions locked on our fleet." David Chen, who had been quietly watching the proceedings while munching on another cookie, looked up with interest. "Oh, has the potluck started? I was wondering when someone would suggest it." "You know, Ambassador Kethvar, you're welcome to join. We always make extra food. This is warfare, not a social gathering." Kethvar exploded, his carapace cycling rapidly through shades of red and purple. "Why can't it be both?" Chen asked, echoing Colonel Martinez's earlier question. "I mean, warfare is just people disagreeing about something, right? And the best way to resolve disagreements is to sit down together, share a meal, and talk things through like civilized beings." The Altarian speaker's flowing features rippled with what might have been amusement. "Ambassador Chen, while your species' approach to conflict resolution is unique, I believe Ambassador Kethvar's concern is that your people appear to be treating a potentially devastating military confrontation as if it were a neighborhood barbecue." "Well," Chen said thoughtfully, "when you put it that way, I suppose we are. But that's because, from our perspective, this is a neighborhood barbecue. Kepler 442b is our neighborhood. All these ships belong to our neighbors, and someone uninvited showed up and started making threats. So we did what humans always do in that situation. Which is? We called our friends and family, told them to bring food and weapons. And now we're going to feed everyone and sort out the misunderstanding." Kethvar's communicator chimed again, and his expression grew even more bewildered as he read the latest update. "Admiral Zexthor reports that the human vessels are sharing recipes during a military standoff. They're broadcasting cooking instructions to each other while maintaining targeting locks on our ships." Chen nodded approvingly. "That makes sense. Mrs. Patterson's apple turnover recipe is legendary, but it's tricky to get right. If you're going to feed 80,000 people, you want to make sure everyone knows the proper technique." 80,000 people? The Saurian delegate hissed in alarm. "Oh yes, the fleet's grown quite a bit since Admiral Sato arrived. Word gets around quickly in human space when someone's hosting a really good potluck, especially when Emily's involved. Her cookies have quite a reputation." The holographic display in the center of the chamber updated to show the current tactical situation. What had started as 300 Zephyrian dreadnoughts facing off against a human colony had become 300 increasingly nervous Zephyrian ships, surrounded by what appeared to be the largest gathering of armed civilians in galactic history. "But surely," the delegate from the Crystalline Collective chimed in, "your people cannot believe that a social gathering will resolve a military crisis?" Chen considered this seriously. "Actually, that's exactly what we believe. You see, most conflicts happen because people don't understand each other. They make assumptions, they operate on incomplete information, they let fear and pride override good judgment. But it's really hard to maintain those kinds of misunderstandings when you're sitting across a dinner table from someone, sharing food their grandmother made." He gestured to the tactical display. "Take the situation, for example. Ambassador Kethvar's people want the mineral resources under our colony. That's understandable. Resources are valuable. But they assumed that because humans are a small young species, we'd just roll over and give them what they wanted. They didn't understand that humans don't really think about conflicts in terms of resource allocation and acceptable losses." "How do humans think about conflicts?" the speaker asked. "In terms of family," Chen replied simply. When you threaten a human community, you're not threatening a strategic asset or a resource extraction operation. You're threatening people's homes, their children's schools, their neighbors' gardens, their friends' businesses. You're threatening the places where they fell in love, where they celebrated birthdays, where they mourned their losses and shared their joys. He paused to take another bite of his cookie, then continued. And when you threaten human families, humans respond the way any species responds when their families are threatened. The difference is that humans have had a lot of practice at protecting their families in a very dangerous galaxy, and we've gotten quite good at it. Kethvar's carapace had shifted to a pale blue that indicated profound confusion. But your fleet is composed primarily of civilian vessels, cargo haulers, passenger liners, converted pleasure craft. How can such ships possibly threaten a professional military force? Well, Chen said, reaching into his jacket again, that's where you might be misunderstanding something fundamental about human civilization. He pulled out what appeared to be a child's drawing, obviously one of Emily's artistic efforts, complete with stick figures and crayon colors. This is a picture Emily drew of her daddy's job. Can you tell me what you see? The council members leaned forward to examine the drawing. It showed a simple stick figure man in what was clearly meant to be a formal diplomatic setting, surrounded by various alien figures. But in the background, barely visible in the child's innocent artwork, were detailed technical diagrams that appeared to be weapons specifications. Sir, Kethvar's military advisor whispered urgently, those appear to be schematic designs for some kind of quantum destabilization weapon. The mathematics are, Sir, our best scientists couldn't design something like this. Chen smiled and put the drawing away. Emily likes to help Daddy with his work. She's very good at math and she enjoys drawing pictures of the technical specifications I review as part of my diplomatic duties. Of course, I have to be careful about what classified materials I leave lying around where she might see them. Classified materials? The speaker asked weakly. Oh yes. You see, being humanity's chief diplomat to the Galactic Council requires a very high security clearance. I have access to our complete military research databases, intelligence assessments, technological development programs, and strategic planning documents. Emily's quite bright, and she likes to read over my shoulder when I'm working. The implications of this statement hung in the air like a toxic cloud, a civilian diplomat with access to humanity's most advanced military secrets. A precocious 8-year-old who treated antimatter physics like a fun puzzle. A species that apparently allowed children to casually experiment with technologies that could reshape the galaxy. Ambassador Chen, the speaker said very carefully, what exactly are your people capable of? Chen finished his cookie and stood up, adjusting his simple suit jacket. For the first time since the proceedings began, his expression became completely serious. Council Speaker, I think the more important question is what we're willing to do, and the answer to that question is really quite simple. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of every delegate present. We're willing to do whatever it takes to protect our families. Everything else is just details. On the tactical display, the human fleet had begun to move. Not in attack formation, but in what appeared to be a complex dance, with thousands of ships repositioning themselves in patterns that defied military logic, but somehow created perfect tactical coverage of every possible approach vector. And right now, Chen continued, our family includes a little girl who makes really good cookies, a colonel who grows the best tomatoes in the sector, a grandmother who runs an amazing bakery, and about 50,000 other people who just want to live their lives in peace. So we're going to feed everyone dinner, and then we're going to politely ask the Zephyrian Empire to go home. And if they refuse? Kethvar asked, though his voice had lost most of its earlier confidence. Chen's smile returned, but it was no longer entirely friendly. Well, then we'll have to show them why threatening human families is considered poor manners in this galaxy. Admiral Zexthor stood on the bridge of the inevitable victory, staring at the most surreal tactical situation of his long military career. His 300 dreadnoughts were now completely surrounded by what appeared to be the galaxy's largest floating dinner party. Human vessels of every description had arranged themselves in loose clusters, their crews visible through viewports as they prepared food, shared stories, and occasionally checked their weapons systems. Sir, his communications officer reported, sounding like he was on the verge of a nervous breakdown, we're now receiving over 50,000 simultaneous transmissions. Cooking tips, family photos, birthday party invitations, homework help, and Sir, someone is apparently teaching a class on advanced quantum mechanics using soup ingredients as visual aids. The main screen was split between multiple feeds from the human fleet. On one, an elderly woman was demonstrating the proper technique for apple turnover preparation, while standing next to what appeared to be a modified cargo hauler bristling with weapons. On another, a group of children were singing birthday songs while their parents casually assembled what looked like planet-cracking ordnance in the background. Admiral Zexthor, Emily's voice came through clearly as she reappeared on the communication feed from the planet. Mrs. Patterson wants to know if you have any food allergies. She's making a special batch of turnovers just for you and your crew. Zexthor found himself staring at the little girl who had somehow become the focal point of this impossible situation. Child, Emily, what do you people actually want from us? Emily's face lit up with the kind of genuine enthusiasm that only children possess. We want you to try Mrs. Patterson's turnovers, and Mommy's pot roast, and my cookies. And we want to hear about your home and your family and maybe learn some Zephyrian recipes. But we came here to conquer your colony. I know, Emily said cheerfully. Daddy explained that. But you can't really conquer people who want to be your friends, can you? That would just be mean. Before Zexthor could respond, Admiral Sato's voice cut in from another channel. Admiral, I think Emily raises an interesting point. What does conquest actually accomplish? You want our mineral resources, presumably to improve life for your people. We want to keep our homes and protect our families. Those aren't actually incompatible goals. They are if you refuse to surrender your territory. But why do we need to surrender anything? Colonel Martinez asked, appearing on a third communication channel while stirring something that smelled amazing even through the audio feed. The minerals you want are deep underground. We live on the surface. We could set up a joint mining operation, share the resources, and everyone wins. Zexthor felt his carefully structured worldview crumbling. Joint operations? With primitives? Admiral Sato said gently, I think we need to address this primitive misconception. May I show you something? Without waiting for permission, she activated what appeared to be a simple holographic display. But instead of showing standard fleet positions or tactical data, it showed a three-dimensional map of local space that was so detailed and accurate that Zexthor's own navigation computers immediately flagged it as superior to their best intelligence. This is real-time data from the sensor network that Emily's science class built for their end-of-year project, Sato explained casually. It covers approximately 50 light-years in all directions and can track individual ships, monitor subspace communications, and analyze the composition of asteroids down to the molecular level. A school science project created that. Well, Emily's class is particularly gifted, but yes, the project requirement was to demonstrate practical applications of advanced sensor technology. The kids decided to build a surveillance network that could help protect local shipping from pirates. Emily bounced excitedly on the planetary feed. It was really fun. Mrs. Chen helped us with the quantum entanglement matrices, and Tommy's dad showed us how to build the subspace relays using old pizza boxes and some spare parts from the school's electronics lab. Zexthor looked at his science officer, who was frantically running calculations on her personal display. Sir, she reported in a shaky voice, if this sensor network is accurate, it means the humans have been tracking our fleet's movements for weeks before we arrived in their space. They knew exactly when we would arrive, what our fleet composition was, and probably what we had for breakfast. That's right, Emily confirmed happily. We knew you were coming, so we had time to call everyone and plan the dinner party. Mrs. Patterson needed 3 days to make enough turnovers for everyone. The absurdity of the situation finally overwhelmed Admiral Zexthor's military training. He sat down heavily in his command chair and stared at the tactical display, showing his fleet surrounded by tens of thousands of human vessels, all apparently crewed by people who were more interested in sharing recipes than conquering territory. Let me understand this correctly, he said slowly. You knew we were coming. You had time to prepare defenses. You could have evacuated the colony or called for military reinforcement. Instead, you organized a potluck dinner. Of course, Emily said brightly. Daddy always says that the best way to solve problems is to get everyone together, share good food, and talk things through. Besides, we made way too much food just for our colony. It would have been wasteful not to invite guests. And if we had attacked anyway? Admiral Sato's expression became thoughtful. Well, Admiral, that would have been very rude. And humans don't really tolerate rudeness when our families are involved. On cue, the tactical display updated to show the true scope of the human response. What Zexthor had initially dismissed as converted civilian vessels were revealed to be something far more sophisticated. The sensor analysis showed power signatures that defied conventional understanding, weapons configurations that his computers couldn't classify, and energy shields that appeared to be operating on principles his science officers had never seen before. The thing is, Admiral Sato continued, humans have been dealing with hostile neighbors for our entire history. When we moved into space, we brought that experience with us. Every human colony is designed to be completely self-sufficient and defensible. Every civilian vessel is built to protect itself and its neighbors. Every human child learns basic engineering and tactical thinking as part of their normal education. Emily held up another drawing, this one showing what appeared to be her colony's defensive systems, rendered in cheerful crayon colors but with technical specifications that made Zexthor's military advisors blanch. We also really like having friends, Emily added helpfully. So when someone new comes to visit, we always try the friendly approach first. But if they're mean to us, well, she shrugged with the casual confidence of a child who had never doubted that her family and community could protect her from any threat. Admiral Zexthor looked around his bridge at officers whose carapaces were displaying colors he had never seen before, combinations of confusion, fear, and something that might have been respect. His invasion fleet, the pride of the Zephyrian Empire, was being offered cookies by a little girl whose homework projects apparently included surveillance networks and antimatter reactors. What? He asked in a voice that had lost all its military authority. Would it take for us to try those turnovers? Emily's face lit up like a supernova. Really? Oh, that's wonderful. Mrs. Patterson will be so excited. She loves it when people appreciate her baking. Within minutes, the tactical display began showing something unprecedented in galactic military history. Zephyrian shuttles were launching from the invasion fleet, not to attack the human colony, but to attend what was rapidly becoming the largest interspecies dinner party ever recorded, and as Admiral Zexthor prepared to beam down to the planet's surface to try apple turnovers made by a grandmother whose bakery ship could apparently destroy his flagship. He found himself thinking that perhaps there were more effective ways to achieve imperial objectives than simply pointing weapons at people. After all, it was very hard to be enemies with someone whose 8-year-old daughter had made you cookies shaped like your own ship, especially when those cookies were genuinely delicious and came with an invitation to stay for pot roast. 3 months later, the Kepler 442b mining consortium would become the most profitable joint venture in galactic history. Zephyrian tourists would travel hundreds of light years to visit Mrs. Patterson's famous bakery, and Emily Chen's cookies would be served at diplomatic functions throughout the galaxy. But more importantly, Ambassador Kethvar would learn that the most powerful weapon in the galaxy wasn't advanced technology or superior firepower. It was the simple human conviction that any problem could be solved if you brought people together, shared good food, and treated everyone like family, even if that family happened to include an 8-year-old girl whose science fair projects casually revolutionized weapons technology while she was trying to make the galaxy a more friendly place, one cookie at a time.